Hello, this is George Senda, the original one and only authentic, real, official, the guy from Pittsburgh. Accept no cheesy YouTube commentators, imposters, or trolls. And in the last few days, I've watched a number of videos. They're all over YouTube. And almost all of them are saying we are headed for a U.S. or world economic crisis or collapse. And I'm basically a historian. I do a lot of reading in history, a lot of reading on economics, a lot of reading on the stock market. And the haters online think I'm stupid because I'm poor. I wasn't always poor. And in the early 70s, I made a fair amount of money, not thousands, but hundreds on the stock market because I only had a little bit to invest. But I made enough to keep reinvesting. And then I got a girlfriend. That was Kathy, and there went the stock market because I had to pay for bills that she incurred. But in any event, I still have followed the markets. And I still have a lot of books on my shelf. You'll see them at the end of this video. And I read the books of Howard Ruff and Harry Brown. Now, Ruff was a financial advisor out of Utah, a Mormon. He produced a newsletter and he became very popular. But if you'd followed his advice, you would only earn 4%. And he died not too long ago. And so did Harry Brown. Now, James Dines, who predicted the rise of China after Mao as an economic power, the rise of uranium prices, the rise of silver and gold, he's still around. But I consider a lot of these people on YouTube to be the new version of the James Dines, Howard Ruff gold bug. They're telling everybody that central banks are going to collapse, that because a lender in Italy has collapsed, that their central bank is screwed. The euro is going to collapse. The European Union is going to collapse. The Chinese are going broke. The Canadian and U.S. housing market are going to collapse. It goes on and on and on. The Chicken Little syndrome is alive and well on YouTube. I don't think it's going to happen. Now, granted, we have trillions invested around the world, and we have trillions of dollars in debt that we can never repay. Now, the only way you could possibly ever pay these off is to devalue the currency, as I believe, if I remember correctly, Nixon did. You'd have to make it like 10 old dollars for one new dollar, and that might well happen one day, or 100 old dollars for one new dollar. The Germans did it, the American military government in 1948 did it to the German people, and other countries have done it as well. And I don't know if this leads to hyperinflation or inflation. I think it does. And the Fed tries to put a clamp on inflation. Goldman Sachs failed to meet its earnings quota the other day, yet Goldman Sachs board gave Jamie Dimon, their chairman, $31 million the most. And we've seen this happen before with Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers, both heavyweight institutional investment houses that went under while they continue to give their partners big bonuses and throw huge parties. Investing is not for the faint of heart. And I want to quote a comment I left on Quora, if I can find it, to someone who said they were 20 years old. And he asked, how should I invest $1 million? I'm in my late 20s and currently holding a lot of commodities and stocks, which is a little bit of a confusing term because they're not the same thing. But considering angel investing or hedge funds, should I get a professional money manager? Well, the answer to that is yes. But you don't become an angel investor with just $1 million. unless you're buying into a really small company. So this is my comment. The first thing you need to do is set your personal goals. Do you want growth? Do you want to make quick profits? Do you want to hold for the long term? Are you willing to take risks? Are you willing to diversify to ensure you don't lose it all by buying too much in one stock or commodity? You have to weigh the risk even before you decide to spend even a small amount. Furthermore, you have the rest of your life to invest. Do some basic research, read the financial magazines, and watch the financial shows for a while. See what's stable, what's trending, and what's going down the tubes. Stay away from retail. Millennials, I'm trying my mouth tonight, like buying online and don't go out. They want everything delivered, and retail will be dead in years to come. Although Amazon, a retail company, is making more money off their defense contracts than they are in retail, they're losing money in retail. And finally, you must invest with an eye on inflation. I used to look at stability and yield. A friend of mine once worked for Bunker Remo. They built a little device about that big that sat on the desks of brokerage offices. And you could tap into it and see what your stock price was, where it was going, what the yield was, what the market was doing that day or at that minute. Bunker Remo got bought out by ADP, and he went to work for ADP. And in the 70s and 80s, he took a third of his money, he was making $35 an hour, and dumped it all into ADP stock. That stock with splits and dividend increases, and they had steady, regular dividend increases every quarter for years, went from $12 a share to $125. And he took his investment from nothing to when he retired in the 80s, $180,000 in the bank. He lived frugally, and when he had to cash it out at 70.5 because the government makes you sell your stock in your IRA, he had that money, and it wasn't until his medical expenses and rent expenses went high that he started having to spend it on that and other things. And at the time of his death, he still had 80 grand in the bank. Now, by contrast, a friend of mine and his wife, they invested a substantial amount in the company Gymboree, a children's clothing and toy company. Well, Gymboree just declared bankruptcy for the second time. I told him I looked at the financials of this company and saw that they had not they had not had a high stock price since last year, that you could not go back further than 5 years, probably because of the first bankruptcy. They may have reorganized under another name or another holding company. But when their stock was at 22 and it went to 15, I said, that's the time you should have sold, because as they kept plummeting, the stock kept going down. Well, they declared bankruptcy this week. They're selling off all their stores. They're selling off their name. They're selling off their website. They have 2 profitable chains they'll be selling, and that store will be gone. And their stock is $5 a share. Now, back in the Bush years, when we had the great economic collapse, when derivatives almost destroyed the financial system throughout the world, you learn not to buy derivatives. Well, this friend of mine, his wife, listened to a friend of hers. It's almost as bad as being a friend of Ratty Patty. And she had her buy derivatives, and derivatives are usually backed by junk bonds or worthless securities, or, as in the case of the near market collapse, worthless mortgages. And the moral is, don't buy everything in one basket. Diversify. Now I'm going to go back to my story. Let's see. Okay. Currently, as an example, AT&T is selling about 30 and paying 6.666% annual yield. That may be ominous to some people. This is one example. You have to look at the history of the company or commodity to see if insiders are selling off, etc. Do your due diligence and There are advisors that will analyze your position for free because they want potential investors to make money and keep it for the long run. It's altruistic, but they also make money from them. Where I live, KFBK in Sacramento has financial shows on the weekend where the hosts offer to do just that. You make an appointment with them, and they will analyze your portfolio for free. And you can hear that on iHeartRadio. If you've made $1 million, however, you already have some idea of how money is made. Remember that angel investors invest a lot of money in companies. Mike Markula, for example, took his money and helped start Apple. And he did it with a lot more than $1 million. Find a financial advisor with a proven track record and one whose history is not full of losses as well. And that's what I said. And you have to do that. You also have to worry about inflation and the risk of losing your capital. So I don't think we're going to have a world economic collapse. I think there's going to be a downturn. Goldman Sachs said we're going from 3.9% or 7% to 3.2%. I think it was a 5% drop in GDP. Some companies like Ford are laying off, but they're also not making certain cars like GM, and I think that sector is going to hurt the automobile industry. Buying a car now is like in the old days, in the 60s, of buying a brand new house. It costs $30,000 or more for the smallest car. And a lot of people don't have that kind of money. The other thing, pay off your credit cards. Now, my bank that charged me 2 huge amounts of money helped ruin my rebuilt credit. I have 1 credit card left, and I am paying them off. This month was $51. Next month will be $75. The following is $100. I'm getting my coin loans out. They'll all be out by May, and I'm paying off 1 other bill. The rest of them all went by the wayside because I couldn't pay them. I didn't have the money. If I had to start over, as someone asked, I would go back and leave myself a note. And by the way, people also think Kathy is dumb. She's not. She doesn't know what to do sometimes either because there's no one to ask. And in the 70s, I knew no one to ask. When I could have bought Wendy's when they opened in the IPO at $5 a share. She was considering, she never told me this before, but she said it today, she was considering early on buying McDonald's stock and buying gold coins, U.S. gold coins, although all she could hear about then was buying Krugerrands. This is back in the 70s. You could have bought Wendy's when they first started out their stock for less than $1 a share. The same with McDonald's. McDonald's has done much better than Wendy's. So you've got to look at everything out there and invest accordingly. And by the way, I will start buying silver again, and there will be other things that I will do and talk about. And that's no one's business but mine and Kathy. All right, and by the way, for those who might say that Social Security will forbid me from doing that, there is no law, no regulation, no provision that says someone on Social Security or disability cannot own gold or silver. I can own all the gold and silver I want. Maybe even one day have bins of gold and silver like Goldman Sachs has in their storage units in England and elsewhere, stacked to the ceiling. All right, this is George Senda, the guy from Pittsburgh. I don't think the sky is falling, but watch the sky anyway. Be warm, cool, dry, or wet, as the case may be. It's going to snow in Pittsburgh tonight and in New Jersey, where Lucky Farrell's is. And be safe out there. Bye-bye for now.